I'm not a dramatic guy. I don't slam doors. I don't throw rings into oceans. I don't post cryptic quotes on Instagram like, "Some people don't deserve your light." If you ever see me doing that, call the police, because somebody stole my body and is using it for content. I'm the guy who tries to fix things quietly. The kind of man who believes a marriage can be repaired with small gestures. A coffee in the morning, a hand on the back in the kitchen, a stupid joke at the right time, "How was your day?" That actually means I care. Which is probably why it took me longer than it should have to realize my wife didn't want small gestures anymore. She didn't want big ones either. She wanted distance. And she got really good at it. It didn't start with a fight. There was no explosion. No cheating text that popped up on her phone like a soap opera notification. It started with tiny things. My hand reaching for hers on the couch, and her hand moving away like the couch was suddenly on fire. A hug from behind while she washed dishes, and her shoulders tightening like I was a stranger who wandered into the house asking for spare change. A kiss on the cheek, and her turning her face just enough that my lips landed on air, like I was trying to affectionately kiss a ghost. At first I told myself it was normal. People get stressed, people get tired, people get touched out. I've read the articles, I've seen the TikToks, I know the vocabulary. Then the vocabulary started sounding less like explanation and more like a weapon. Not now. Stop. I'm busy. Can you not? Why are you always touching me? That last one is my favorite, because it's the kind of sentence that makes you pause and think, right, why am I touching my own wife? The audacity. It wasn't just the rejection, it was the tone. There's a difference between "not right now, babe" and "don't." One is a boundary. The other is a warning. And I started getting warnings like I was a dog that kept trying to climb on the couch. The crazy part? She wasn't cold to everyone. Oh no. To strangers, co-workers, neighbors, her friends, she was sunshine. She laughed. She smiled. She touched people's arms when she talked. She leaned in when someone told a joke. She did that little head tilt that says, "I am emotionally available and interesting." At home, with me. She acted like physical contact was a subscription she forgot to cancel. And I was the charge she didn't recognize. I tried to talk about it once, not in a dramatic way, not like, "You don't love me anymore," with tears and dramatic background music. Just a simple, adult, boring conversation. The kind that usually works when both people still respect each other. We were in the kitchen. She was scrolling on her phone, the universal posture of someone who is technically standing in front of you, but spiritually in another dimension. I said, "Hey, can we talk?" She didn't look up. About what? Us. That got her attention. Not in a good way. More like when you say police in a crowded place and everyone suddenly gets tense. "What about us?" she asked, like us was a weird word she hadn't heard in years. I kept my voice calm. "You've been distant." She sighed. Heavy, theatrical. The kind of sigh that says, "Congratulations, you've ruined my evening just by existing." "I'm fine," she said. "No, you're not." I leaned against the counter, not blocking her, not cornering her. I wasn't trying to dominate the conversation. I was just there. "You don't want me touching you. You barely talk to me. It feels like you're pulling away." She looked at me with that expression people use when they're trying to decide whether you're stupid or just annoying. "I'm just tired." "Tired for 3 months?" I asked. "Can you not turn everything into a thing?" she snapped. I blinked. "I'm not turning it into a thing. It already is a thing." She rolled her eyes. "You're so sensitive." Ah, the magic phrase. Because "you're so sensitive" is what people say when they've done something cruel, but they'd prefer not to feel guilty for it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just nodded slowly, like I was watching someone walk directly into a wall and commit to it. "Okay," I said. "I'm sensitive." She went back to her phone. Conversation over. And that's how the slow death happens. Not with screaming, with silence, with avoidance, with a person looking through you like your furniture. I didn't tell anyone. Not at first. Because you don't run to your friends and say, "Hey man, my wife has been flinching from my affection." That's not a conversation. That's an emotional hostage situation. And I didn't want pity. I didn't want advice from guys whose longest relationship was with their gaming chair. I wanted the marriage to feel normal again. Then my sister announced her wedding date, and my brain did something incredibly dumb, which is, it hoped. Because hope is basically the human version of walking into a burning building and saying, "Maybe it's just warm in here." My sister Lily was getting married in early spring. Nice venue, outdoor ceremony, white flowers, fairy lights everywhere. The kind of wedding that looks like a Pinterest board threw up in a beautiful way. Lily was glowing. She'd waited a long time to meet someone decent, and when she finally did, she held on to him like she'd found water in a desert. Her fiancé, Mark, was the calm type, solid, polite. The guy who says yes ma'am to my mother and actually means it. I wanted to be fully present for my sister. I wanted to celebrate her. And I wanted my wife and I to show up as a couple. Not a performance. Just a couple. Because weddings do something to people. They soften you. They remind you of promises. They reset your brain for a moment. At least, that's what I told myself. My wife Hannah was weirdly excited about the wedding. Not for Lily, for the wedding, for the social part, for the pictures, the dress, the attention, the chance to be around people who didn't live with her and therefore hadn't earned her coldness. When we got the invitation in the mail, Hannah smiled like a teenager. "Oh, this is going to be so fun," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, my sister getting married. Huge entertainment." She laughed and lightly slapped my arm, lightly, playfully. I watched that moment like a detective watches a suspect accidentally reveal they're not actually disabled. Over the weeks leading up to the wedding, she became almost charming. To everyone else. To me, she was polite. Like you are to a coworker you don't trust, but still need to work with. She talked about her dress constantly. "This one makes me look washed out. This one makes my shoulders look broad. This one is perfect, but I need different shoes." I offered feedback. I offered help. I even went shopping with her once, because I'm a supportive husband, and also because I wanted to see if she could be normal around me in public. In the store, she smiled. She laughed. She leaned into my shoulder when something made her laugh. For a second, my heart did that stupid little jump, like, "Oh, there you are." Then we got home, the door closed, and she turned back into someone I lived with, not someone I was married to. If marriage was a house, ours had become 2 apartments with a thin wall between them. And I kept trying to knock politely. The week of the wedding, I tried one more time to reconnect. Not in a needy way, in a confident way, a calm way. We were in the living room. I sat beside her, not too close, not too far. I said, "Hey, Lily's wedding is important to me. I want to have a good time with you there." She nodded. "Okay." "I mean it," I said. "I don't want us to feel off." Hannah looked at me for a moment. Then she gave a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We'll be fine," she said. "Just don't be all clingy." There it was again. That word, clingy. Like I was some emotionally unstable octopus. I didn't react. I just stared at her for a second. "Clingy," I repeated, tasting it like it was spoiled milk. "I just mean," she waved her hand, already annoyed at having to explain herself. "You're always touching." I leaned back, calm. "I'm your husband." She shrugged. "Weird." "Right. Because nothing says weird like a married couple being affectionate." And I sat there thinking, if she needs me to act like a stranger so she can feel comfortable, what exactly am I to her now? But I didn't spiral. I didn't beg. I made a decision. I'd go to the wedding. I'd support my sister. I'd be calm. I'd be present. And I'd watch. Because at some point, You stop trying to convince someone you deserve basic respect. You just start collecting evidence quietly of what they already decided. The day of Lily's wedding arrived like a movie set. Everything was perfect in that expensive, intentional way. White chairs aligned like soldiers, flowers everywhere, little glass jars with candles that looked like they cost more than my first car payment. There was that smell of fresh greenery and hairspray, and the air had that spring warmth that makes people believe in love again. I showed up early because I'm the brother. I'm the do whatever you need guy. I'm also the man who learned years ago that if you're late to a family event, my mother will look at you like you personally sabotaged the economy. Hannah showed up later. She appeared at the venue like a celebrity arriving at a premiere. Dress perfect, hair flawless, makeup so clean you could have used her face as a mirror. She stepped out of the car and immediately smiled at the first person she saw, like she'd been waiting all week to turn on her public personality. And it worked. People lit up when they saw her. "Oh my God, Hannah, you look stunning!" "Wow, that dress is gorgeous. You two are such a beautiful couple." That last one always landed like a joke told at the wrong funeral. Hannah laughed, touched the woman's arm, leaned in, did the whole charming routine. If you didn't know her, you'd think she was the warmest person in the world. If you lived with her, you'd know that warmth had a very specific zip code, and I didn't reside there anymore. I walked up beside her, calm, not needy, not clingy, just present. "Hey," I said. She looked at me and gave me a smile that was technically polite but emotionally empty, like a receptionist greeting you at a dentist's office. "Hi," she replied. I offered my arm instinctively, an automatic husband move, like holding the door or saying "bless you" when someone sneezes. She didn't take it. Not in a dramatic way, not like she slapped it away. She just ignored it and walked forward. And I adjusted, because that's what you do when someone keeps rewriting the rules. You stop playing the old game. Inside the venue, Lily was in full bridal chaos, half excited, half terrified, like a person about to jump out of a plane while holding a bouquet. She ran up to me and wrapped her arms around my neck. "There you are," she said, squeezing me tight. "I was scared you'd get stuck in traffic." "I'm here," I said. Nothing short of an earthquake could have stopped me. My sister Lily ran up to me and wrapped her arms around my neck. She laughed. Then her eyes flicked to Hannah. "Oh my God, Hannah!" Lily squealed. "You look amazing!" Hannah's smile finally became real. "Oh, stop," she said, doing the modesty routine while clearly enjoying every second. She hugged Lily, full hug, both arms, cheek to cheek. Lily stepped back, beaming. "You guys ready for today?" "Absolutely," Hannah said, bright as a morning show host. I nodded. "Ready." Lily squeezed my hand again. "I'm so happy you're here." I meant it when I said, "Me too." Then Lily rushed off, dragged away by bridesmaids and a coordinator with a clipboard who looked like she could run a military operation. Hannah turned instantly to scan the room, eyes hunting for her next conversation like she was collecting social points. There was a family friend, an aunt, a cousin, people she could charm, and she did. She floated, she laughed, she touched shoulders and forearms. She was the life of every little circle she joined. And I noticed something interesting. She had no problem being physically affectionate, just not with me. With me, she maintained that polite distance that says, "We're not fighting, we're just not together." At one point, an older relative, my Uncle Rob, the kind of guy who thinks every conversation is a chance to do a comedy routine, walked up and slapped me on the shoulder. "There's my boy," he boomed. "Where you been hiding?" "Trying to avoid your jokes," I said. He laughed loud enough to scare nearby children. Then he glanced at Hannah. "And look at you two," he said. "Still newlyweds, huh?" We'd been married 7 years, but sure. Hannah smiled. "Oh, you know." Uncle Rob winked like we had a secret. I just smiled politely, because what else do you do when your marriage is being described by someone who has no idea it's currently running on fumes and prayer? Then Hannah's phone buzzed, and she angled her body away from me as she checked it, like my presence might contaminate her screen. I didn't react, I just watched, because watching was what I did now. A little later, we were lined up near the aisle for the pre-ceremony photos. Family photos are always fun because they're basically forced happiness with deadlines. The photographer, a guy named Chad with the energy of someone who drinks espresso for sport, clapped his hands. All right, big smiles, couples together, get close. He waved people into place like a traffic controller. Hannah immediately stepped into position beside me, but not with me. Next to me, technically, like someone standing in line at a grocery store. Chad leaned forward. Okay, you two, husband and wife, right? Let's get you looking like you actually like each other. He laughed, proud of himself. I gave a small chuckle. Hannah's smile tightened. I shifted closer, just enough to look natural. Not to cling, just enough so we didn't look like two co-workers forced into a team-building photo. Hannah moved half a step away, half a step. Tiny. Chad didn't notice. Chad was busy yelling at children and adjusting someone's tie. But I noticed. Because when your spouse starts treating you like a PR risk, you notice everything. I leaned toward her slightly, lowered my voice. You okay? I asked. She didn't look at me. I'm fine. Her eyes were scanning again, watching people. I followed her gaze. There was a guy near the groom's side, someone I recognized vaguely. A friend of Mark's, maybe. Tall, well-dressed, easy smile. He was chatting with someone and laughing. Hannah's eyes lingered there a fraction too long. Then she noticed me noticing. Her expression sharpened. What? She asked. Nothing, I said. Just looking. She exhaled through her nose, annoyed. Don't start. I'm not starting anything. Yes, you are, she whispered, with that tone that says, you existing is starting something. I stared at her, calm. Hannah. I said nothing. She leaned in, still smiling outwardly for the camera, but the words came cold. Just don't cling to me, she murmured. Not in front of people. It was said like a reminder, like I was a child who needed instructions. And that's when I realized something. She wasn't scared of public touching. She was scared of being associated with me in a way that looked intimate. It wasn't discomfort. It was image control. And that's a completely different disease. Chad finally shouted, All right, next, parents with the bride, let's go. The group shifted. Photos continued. Hannah drifted away the second she could, back to other people. I stood there, hands in my pockets, looking at the wedding setup. And I thought, okay, I get it. Today isn't about me. It's about Lily. I'm not going to ruin it. Then my mother walked up. My mom has a supernatural ability to sense tension. It's like she has a radar for something is wrong with my son's face. She stepped beside me and lowered her voice. You okay? She asked. I gave her my best, everything is fine smile. The one men use right before they say, no, I don't need help, and then fall apart later in the shower like a responsible adult. I'm good, I said. Mom's eyes flicked to Hannah, who was laughing with a group of women, then back to me. She didn't say anything else, but her mouth tightened. Mothers don't need evidence, they just need patterns. All right, she said slowly. If you say so. Then she patted my arm and walked away. A few minutes later, Lily came back out, ready for the ceremony. She looked stunning, trembling slightly, like happiness was physically too big for her body. She ran up and squeezed my hands. I'm about to walk down the aisle, she whispered, eyes glossy. I'm going to cry. Good, I said. If you don't cry at your own wedding, they revoke your bridal license. She laughed through a breath. Promise me you'll be there, like, really there. I squeezed her hands. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. She hugged me quickly. Then she turned and hugged Hannah. Hannah hugged her back, again, full, warm, real. Then Lily was pulled away. The music started. People shifted into their seats. Everyone got quiet. And Hannah finally came back to stand beside me near the aisle, where the family was supposed to be. She stood close enough to look proper, but not close enough to feel like a couple. I didn't touch her. I didn't offer my arm. I didn't try to play husband. I just stood there, calm, composed, watching my sister prepare to walk into the happiest moment of her life. And I told myself, just get through the ceremony. Don't make it about you. Don't react. Don't give her the satisfaction of seeing you hurt. Because men like me don't beg for dignity. We just stop handing it out for free. The ceremony was beautiful. I won't lie. It was one of those moments that makes even cynical people shut up for a second. Lily walked down the aisle like she couldn't believe she deserved that much love. And Mark looked at her like the world had finally made sense. My mom cried. My dad tried not to cry and failed. The officiant said something about love being patient, and I almost laughed because patience was basically my full-time job lately. Hannah sat beside me. Perfect posture, perfect smile. From the outside, we looked like a normal married couple attending a wedding. From the inside, we looked like a lie with good lighting. After the vows, people clapped, the couple kissed, everyone stood, and the whole room filled with that warm wedding noise, the kind that makes you think maybe the world isn't completely broken. Then Chad the photographer returned like a battle commander. Family photos! Now! Let's go! Let's go! People started moving toward the photo area near the altar. Candles, flowers, white backdrop, the whole eternal love setup, and we stepped into place with the rest of the family. Right near the altar, right where everyone could see, right where the line between husband and stranger was about to get drawn in permanent ink. Chad the photographer stood at the front like a general. All right, bride and groom center, parents close, siblings in, couples together. Let's make this look like a magazine spread. People shuffled into place. Lily was glowing, tears still clinging to her lashes, bouquet trembling slightly in her hands. Mark looked like the luckiest man alive. My mom dabbed her eyes. My dad stood stiff, pretending he wasn't fighting emotions like they were an enemy combatant. And then there was Hannah. Perfect posture, perfect smile, perfect distance. Chad pointed at me. Brother of the bride, get in here. I stepped forward, positioning myself beside Hannah because, well, that's where the husband stands. That's literally the job description. Chad squinted through the camera. Okay, you two, nice and close. Make it look like you like each other. He laughed again, proud of his originality. I gave a polite smile. Hannah's smile sharpened, like someone had just asked her to do unpaid labor. I didn't do anything dramatic. I didn't grab her. I didn't pull her. I simply made the most natural, normal gesture in human history at a family event. I placed my hand lightly on her waist, not possessive, not even romantic, just a marker of we are together. The kind of touch nobody even notices, except her. Hannah stiffened instantly, and then, with the timing of a guillotine dropping, she turned her head slightly and said, loud enough, "Keep your hands to yourself." The words didn't sound like a boundary. They sounded like a verdict, like I was some stranger who'd wandered into the photo line and gotten too comfortable. For a second, my brain didn't process it. It was like hearing your name shouted in the middle of a dream. Then the silence hit. A silence so sudden and sharp it made the candles feel loud. My mother froze, like someone had unplugged her. Lily's smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second, barely visible, but I saw it. Brides see everything on their wedding day. They're basically emotional surveillance systems in white dresses. Mark looked down at the floor like it suddenly became extremely interesting. My uncle stopped mid-breath. One of the cousins made a noise that might have been a cough or might have been their soul leaving their body. And Chad the photographer, the man paid to command rooms, just paused. His camera lowered slightly. He blinked once, twice, then forced out an awkward chuckle. Okay, let's keep smiling, guys. He clapped his hands too hard. Big family energy. Nobody moved, because everyone had heard it. Every single person. And that's the thing about humiliation. It doesn't need an audience to hurt. But when you have one, it becomes permanent. Hannah didn't look at me. She just kept that polite wedding smile plastered on her face, like she'd said nothing more offensive than, "Pass the salt." I stared at her for one long second, and inside me, something clicked. Not anger, not sadness. Clarity. A clean, cold snap, like a lock turning. Because she didn't whisper it. She didn't say, "Hey, not right now." She didn't say, "I'm uncomfortable." She said it like a reprimand, like I was inappropriate, like I was not her husband. She didn't just push my hand away. She pushed the marriage away, in front of everyone. And I realized something in that moment. This wasn't about touch. This wasn't about stress. This was contempt. Pure, undeniable contempt. The officiant could have come back up and announced, "By the way, love is dead," and it would have felt less personal. Chad cleared his throat loudly. "Okay, bride and groom only? Let's do just the couple now?" People scattered with relief, like animals escaping a fire. My mom stepped back slowly, eyes wide, still not speaking. Lily looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time all day. Her face was pale under the makeup. She mouthed silently, "Are you okay?" I gave her the smallest nod. Not because I was okay, because I wasn't going to break on her wedding day. Hannah adjusted her dress, smoothing fabric like she hadn't just dropped a bomb. Then she turned slightly toward me, finally, with a tight whisper, "Don't make this a thing." I almost laughed. It was so absurd. I felt the humor rise like bile. Don't make it a thing. As if she hadn't just announced to my entire family that my touch was unwelcome. As if I was the one who had ruined something. I leaned slightly toward her, voice calm, almost gentle. "You already did." Her eyes flashed, annoyed. "I'm serious," she hissed. "Not here." I looked at her, and for the first time in months, I wasn't trying to understand her. I wasn't trying to fix her. I wasn't trying to hold on to the version of her that used to laugh with me in grocery store aisles. I just saw what was in front of me. A woman who was embarrassed to be married to me. A woman who could hug my sister, touch strangers, smile at everyone, but couldn't tolerate her husband's hand at her waist for a photograph. I didn't say another word, because there was nothing left to explain. The rest of the photos continued without me. Not officially. I was still there physically. But something had left the frame. Chad kept shouting instructions. People kept posing. Lily kept smiling, trying desperately to glue happiness back together. But my mind had gone quiet. After a few more painfully normal minutes, the photo session broke apart. People moved toward the reception hall. Music started again. Laughter returned, shaky at first, then louder. The wedding rolled forward, because weddings always roll forward. They don't stop for one man's humiliation. Hannah walked ahead of me, dress swaying, perfectly composed. Like nothing happened. Like she hadn't just stabbed something sacred with 4 casual words. I watched her for a moment. Then I turned the opposite direction. Not running, not storming, just walking. A calm exit. The kind of exit a man makes when he understands something is over. I moved through the hallway past floral decorations and guests holding champagne. No one stopped me. They just watched, pretending not to, because people are very good at pretending not to witness pain. The air outside was cooler. The noise from inside became muffled. And for the first time that day, I could breathe. I stood near the edge of the venue, looking out at the parking lot. My hands were in my pockets. My face was calm. But inside? Inside was that strange emptiness that comes right after the moment you stop hoping. Then, behind me, footsteps, fast, sharp, and a voice, low and irritated. "Are you seriously walking away?" I didn't turn yet. I already knew who it was. Hannah had come to collect the mess. I didn't turn around right away. Not for drama. Just because the air outside felt cleaner than whatever was happening inside. Then Hannah's heels clicked toward me fast. Are you seriously walking away? She snapped. I turned calmly. Yes. She blinked, like she expected an argument, not an answer. What is wrong with you? What's wrong with me? I repeated. You told me to keep my hands to myself, in front of my entire family. Her eyes rolled. Oh my God, you're upset. Not, are you okay? Not, that came out wrong. Just, you're upset. Like emotions were a personal failure. This is Lily's wedding, she hissed. Don't make this about you. I almost smiled at the absurdity. You made it about me at the altar. It's not that deep, she said sharply. I don't like public touching. I nodded slowly. That's interesting. Because you hugged Lily. You touched your friends. You laughed with strangers. Her jaw tightened. That's different. Yeah, I said quietly. It's different because it wasn't me. That landed. She scoffed, defensive. You're being dramatic. No, I said, voice steady. Dramatic would have been me yelling in there. I'm doing the opposite. She stepped closer, lowering her voice like I was the problem. People will forget. They won't, I said, and neither will I. Her expression hardened. Congratulations, she snapped. Now you embarrassed me. There it was. Not my humiliation, not the marriage, her image. I looked at her for a long second, then nodded once. Of course, I said. That's what matters. She stared, angry, waiting for me to apologize. I didn't. Instead, I turned slightly away. And I realized something with complete clarity. She didn't just push my hand away. She pushed me out of the role of husband, in public. And once that line is crossed, you don't uncross it with excuses. Behind me, her voice sharpened again. So what? You're going to leave over one sentence? I turned my head just enough. No, I said calmly. I'm leaving because that sentence wasn't new. It was just the first time you said it out loud. I stayed outside. Hannah left. The music inside kept going, laughter rising like nothing had happened. That's what weddings do. They don't stop for anyone's private collapse. A few minutes later, softer footsteps approached. James? I turned. My sister Lily stood there in her dress, bouquet in hand, her face no longer glowing, just concerned. You disappeared, she said quietly. I needed air, I answered. She hesitated, then her voice dropped. I heard it. I didn't ask what she meant. We both knew. She said that to you, at the altar. I nodded once. Lily's eyes widened, disbelief turning into anger. James, what the hell was that? She said it like you were some stranger. I gave a small, humorless smile. That's what I was in that moment. Her voice cracked. She's been like this? I didn't want to dump months onto her wedding day, but I nodded anyway. Today was just the first time it was public. Lily stared at the ground for a second, then looked back up. So, what are you going to do? I answered calmly, not like a wounded husband, but like someone who already understood the end. I'm not going back in there as her accessory. Her lips parted. You're leaving? I already left, I said quietly. Lily's eyes filled. Oh my God. I stepped closer, firm but gentle. Listen, this is your day. Don't let my marriage ruin your wedding. She shook her head. You're not ruining anything. She is. Silence hung between us. I'm so sorry. I squeezed her arm once. Go back inside, I told her. Be happy. Dance. Don't carry this. She nodded, wiping her tears. Halfway back, she turned. And James? Yeah? Her voice was protective now. If she ever tries to rewrite this, make you the bad guy. I looked at her spokoino. She can tell whatever story she wants. I live the real one. Lily held my gaze, then disappeared back into the lights. And I stayed outside, alone, not angry, just finished. I didn't go back inside, no argument, no scene, just a quiet walk to my car, like a man exiting something that was already over. The drive was silent. That sentence kept replaying, Keep your hands to yourself. Not whispered, not private, public, final. My phone started buzzing before I even reached the highway. Hannah, where are you? Come back. Are you seriously doing this? Then, of course, you embarrassed me. Stop being dramatic. No apology. No, I didn't mean it. Just damage control. That told me everything. The next morning, I didn't cool off. I sat in a lawyer's office, the kind of place where feelings don't matter, only facts. He asked what happened. I said calmly, "She told me to keep my hands to myself at my sister's wedding." He paused, then nodded like he understood the real meaning. And that was it. Clean, quiet, done. Later that evening, after I filed for divorce, Hannah came up to me, arms crossed, voice sharp. "So you're really leaving over one sentence?" I looked at her and answered honestly, "No." She waited. "I'm leaving because you said it like I wasn't your husband." She scoffed, defensive. "It wasn't a big deal." I nodded once. "It was big enough that you meant it." Silence. For the first time, she had nothing to twist. Because the truth was simple. Sometimes a marriage doesn't end with cheating. Sometimes it ends with one sentence said out loud. That reveals how long someone has already been gone. She kept calling it one phrase. I called it what it was, a goodbye. And the strange part? I didn't leave in anger. I left in clarity. Because I realized something at that altar. I wasn't losing a marriage. I was leaving a place where I was being treated like something to be ashamed of. And no man should ever stay where his love is spoken to like a warning. Sometimes marriage doesn't end with betrayal. Sometimes it ends when someone tells you to keep your hands to yourself, like you were never home.